If you've been keeping up with Season of the Wish, you know we have access to the Wishkeeper exotic bow now, and I've already made a Hunter and a Warlock Strand build, pairing it with the bow to make it really effective. So in this video, you know we have to pair it with a Titan Strand build. So let's talk about the exotic bow. Now it is craftable just like previous exotic mission weapons that we can get. Again, over the next coming weeks, we are going to get bonuses to the Snare Weaver intrinsic perk. If you don't know what it does, precision hits and final blows build energy towards the Snare Weaver arrow that can be fired from the hip. On impact, Snare Weaver arrows create a pattern of traps that suspend nearby targets. Essentially, it's a mix between Hierarchy of Needs and the Verglas curve. Again, we need the precision hits and kills to build up the main arrow, and then we can hip fire it to use it. And again, we'll be able to get a variety of bowstrings and arrows on top of that with grips. And then we have its trait perk, which is Silkbound Slayer, which automatically comes on the weapon. So this weapon deals bonus damage to suspended targets, gain faster draw time for a short duration when you suspend a target from any source or damage a suspended target with this weapon. Suspend is going to be a big factor with this bow and it performing very well. And like I said, over the next coming weeks, we will be able to get some catalyst refits for it. Again, we can get Vorpal Weapon refit with Hatchling refit as well, but we do have some two perks that are very specific toward it, which is Enduring Snare refit, so Snare Weaver traps last longer. Then we also have Multi-Threaded Snare refit, which Snare Weaver traps can suspend more targets. Now, the exotic armor we're going to be pairing with the bow is the Abeyant Leap exotic boots that came with the Lightfall DLC, mainly because this gives us bonuses to one of the aspects we'll be using, which is Dredgen's Lash. So when you activate your class ability, it sends out a ripple in reality, travels across the ground, suspends and damages targets. The main thing here is to be able to suspend those targets, but with the perk here, with Dredgen's Lash equipped, it'll spawn 2 additional projectiles, so now we have 3 projectiles come out. It tracks targets more aggressively and travels farther. And then lastly, the real cool thing here is we gain Woven Mail when suspending targets. And again, that's going to be a great way to add some more survivability to this build. Now, I do want to talk about the stuff under the subclass before we dive into the artifact perks, because we do have some important stuff here. So for our abilities, I'm personally going with the Rally Barricade just because, you know, I can launch it out, I can suspend those targets, then I can proceed to shoot the bow to get stacks of Snare Weaver, then I can suspend targets with that as well. But for tougher activities, you could also put on Towering Barricade. For movement, use what you like. We only have the one melee, which is Frenzied Blade. This will sever targets. And then for the grenade, I personally like the grapple for the grapple melee. But if you wanted to use the shout grenade to suspend targets even more, you totally can. The main reason I like grapple, you know, pairing with the melee, is because of our second aspect, which is Banner of War. So defeat a target with a melee attack finisher or a sword to raise the Banner of War that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses. Banner of War is really just a survivability mechanic with this. I know previously when I did this build, we didn't have Banner of War available. That's why people liked Into the Fray, because you could destroy Tangle or cast a super and grants Woven Mail for nearby allies. And when you have Woven Mail, you get increased melee regeneration. But with this build, since we're going to be able to gain Woven Mail just from suspending targets with the exotic, it just makes a lot more sense to put on Banner and Dredgen's Lash. For Fragments here, I personally like Thread of Generation, so when I deal any type of damage, it generates grenade energy. It is a -10 to Discipline. For the second one, I like Thread of Warding, so I can pick up an Orb of Power, and it gives me Woven Mail. It is a -10 to Resilience, and I know that, you know, suspending targets will allow us to have Woven Mail, but with Thread of Warding and all the orbs we're going to be creating, this is basically a guaranteed way to have Thread of Warding almost constantly. Next up, Thread of Wisdom. Defeating suspended targets creates an Orb of Power. Again, I really like this one. Again, free Orbs of Power, free Woven Mail, free other benefits as well. And then lastly, Thread of Fury. So damaging targets with a Tangle grants melee energy. It is a -10 to Strength, but again, I'd like to have my melee as much as possible to take advantage of Banner of War. Again, if you did want to switch one of these out, again, if you did want to switch out Warding, since there's multiple ways we can suspend targets to gain Woven Mail, you could look into Thread of Mind. So defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy, which means you can get your barricade back even faster, which means you can send out more of the suspending things from Dredgen's Lash. Now, under the artifact perks, we have 2 strand-specific ones. First up being Unraveling Orb. So when you pick up an Orb of Power, it grants strand weapons Unraveling Rounds, which, as you know, can pop anti-barrier champion shields. But again, if you have Unstoppable Bow on, you really won't be able to take advantage of it. But the main reason with Unravel, especially with the grapple melee, is to take advantage of Horde Shuttle. So damaging unravel targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. When it says occasionally, it means quite often. So any like unravel that we put out there, and as long as we damage a target that's affected by it, we basically spawn a free threadling. Now, I'm also going to be taking advantage of solar weapons here, so I definitely want Flame, Fiber, and Free so I can combine the Solar Strand Siphon mod on the helmet. Next up, highly recommend Flint Striker. So rapid solar weapon precision hits and rapid solar weapon final blows grant Radiant. The main thing with Radiant here is Torch. So while you're Radiant, you deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs, since we will have a lot of Suspend on the field. And as long as we're Radiant, that means all of our weapons across the board can do more damage, which is nice. You can also put on Kindling Trigger, so when you're Radiant, your solar weapons cause Scorch to unscorched combatants. If you're using a precision weapon in the energy slot, like something like a Trace Rifle, which I'll talk about weapons later, but if you're Radiant, your Solar Precision final blows can cause an ignition. But in the final column, I personally like Argent Ordnance, so I have a rocket that can deal more damage. It does consume an armor charge, so keep that in mind. And then lastly, highly recommend this for every build this season. Put on From Whence You Came, increase ability damage to taken and scorn combatants, and then Wish into Being, so when your super is nearly fully charged, your ability final blows spawn orbs of power. Next, going over our armor mods, starting with the helmet. Like I said, I'm taking advantage of the Solar Strand Dual Siphon mod, so my Rapid Solar and Strand Weapon final blows will create orbs of power. And then I like hands-on, so I gain bonus super energy on my melee kills. But if you didn't want to switch this out for, heavy ammo finder, special ammo finder, if you need ammo for that, or you could do Dynamo as well, so reduce the super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. Either one works, to be honest, since we're going to be using both for Banner War and to suspend targets, so you can play with it how you like. On the gauntlets, I'm rocking double impact induction with focusing strike. So with impact induction, when I cause damage with my powered melee, it reduces my grenade cooldown. And same thing with focusing strike, when I deal damage with my power melee, it grants me class ability energy. On the chest piece, you can rock whatever combination of reserve and resistance mods that you like. I personally like solar reserve, since I'm going to be using a solar special and heavy weapon. I want more ammo for those things. And then whatever resistance mods that you'd like, depending on burns and all that great jazz. On my boots here, I'm rocking recuperation, so when I pick up an orb of power, it gives me health back. Again, this is kind of for tougher activities, just for survivability purposes, but if you did want to switch this out, I would recommend Insulation, so it reduces your class ability cooldown when you pick up an orb of power. And then I'm also rocking Strand and Solar Weapon Surge, so those weapons gain a small bonus to damage. While you have any armor charge, your armor charge now decays over time. Again, you collect orbs of power to gain armor charges. With this build, you can have 3 armor charges. With any of these blue mods, it makes that armor charge last 10 seconds. So with 3 armor charges, we can have 30 seconds of the bonus weapon damage. Lastly, on my class item, I'm using Outreach, so reducing my melee cooldown when I use that class ability. Also with Powerful Attraction, it automatically collects nearby orbs of power when I activate my class ability. So when I pop that barricade and there's orbs around me, I automatically collect them, which allows me to gain some armor charges, get my super back faster, all that great jazz. And then lastly, I like Time Dilation, so your decaying armor charge has a longer duration. So that 10 seconds that I mentioned with the armor charge actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds. So at 3 armor charges, we can have 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage. Now for stats to focus on, we talk about every video, try to have tier 10 100 resilience. It's going to give you a 30% damage reduction, which again, it's going to be good for survivability purposes. And this works out for us because resilience is actually tied to how fast we can get the barricade back on the Titan. And since we have it maxed out, we have the fastest barricade cooldown possible, so we can take advantage of the Abeyant lead perks there to suspend more targets. And then I would focus on discipline and strength. Discipline is tied to your grenade cooldown, strength is tied to your melee cooldown. If I'm going to be using the grapple melee in tandem with my melees to gain Banner of War, I want the fastest cooldown for both of these. You could also look into intellect as well, which is how fast you can get your super back. Now for your weapon options, again, a main staple is going to be the bow here in the primary slot, obviously, but if you didn't want to use it, this build is still going to be very effective with other primary weapons. So you could look into a Strand sidearm like Michael's Reverence from Root of Nightmares. Again, sidearms do have anti-barrier this time around. With auto rifles as well, we have Overload, so Rufus's Fury is fantastic. If you want to go with an exotic, Quicksilver Storm is very good here. If you wanted to use a special weapon, I would recommend the Scatter Sigil, specifically because of Slice. So when you use that class ability, like your next shots with a weapon can cause Sever, and again, that's another Strand debuff, and that can allow us to take advantage of Torch and other benefits there as well. Again, I have the Sword Breaker 1-2 punch shotgun. It's Strand as well. It could take advantage of unraveling rounds and stuff like that. So you could use those, but like I said, the main staple is going to be the Wishkeeper bow. Any energy slot, if you're going to be using the Wishkeeper as the primary weapon, I would recommend a special weapon here. Again, Cartesian Coordinate, Vorpal left from gold. This thing's great for boss damage and just damaging higher tier targets overall. The Eremite from last season is craftable. Envious Assassin controlled burst. This thing is fantastic. You could use something like Acacia's Ejection. This is a solar trace rifle, reconstruction incandescent. It can do precision damage, and when you're radiant, you can actually proc raise precision, which can cause ignition. So keep those things in mind as well. If you're going to be using a special weapon in the primary slot here, in the special slot or energy slot, you could use a primary like Sunshot. Sunshot's fantastic. A lot of explosions, can get radiant very easily. It's very good this season. But anything that can come with incandescent, you know, the Adhortative, the revamped pulse rifle, heel clip incandescent, Abyss Defiant, Callous Mini Tool, as we know, these ones are very good with incandescent. The Epigel integration, again, hand cannons have unstoppable this season too, so you have a multitude of options. But if you're going to be using the bow, I would just recommend a special weapon here. For heavy weapons, use your favorite solar heavy weapon. Again, I have this Apex Predator here, this crafted recon bait and switch. If I want to go more precision, I could use Cataclysmic, 4 times the charm bait and switch. If I'm going to be using an exotic, you know, Dragon's Breath, you have Gallant Horn, stuff like that. But since I'm using the bow, like I said, just put on your favorite solar heavy weapon. Now, if you got through all that and you're still a little confused about how this build works, I'm going to break it down for you. But honestly, as long as you're using the bow and your weapons in tandem with your abilities to suspend targets and gain Banner of War, you'll be set. Now, we have 2 big things to take advantage of with this build. First up is all these suspend features. So again, before we get into a gunfight, we can pop our Rally Barricade, Tyrant Barricade, whatever. I like Rally, so you can hide behind it. Again, that'll suspend all the targets in front of you. You can shoot them with the bow to stack Stair Weaver, and then you can suspend targets with the hip fire shot once it's all stacked up. And with the big thing with this, number 1, is that we gain Woven Mail when you suspend targets in general, but also with the Fragment Thread of Wisdom, when we defeat those suspended targets, it spawns an Orb of Power, and there's no cooldown for it, like with the mod ones, you know, like Firepower, Heavy Handed, Reaper, but we're not using those. But again, it's just the concept of, again, you can create a lot of Orbs of Power just by defeating suspended targets. Being able to handle an entire group of enemies to where they can't even shoot you or your team is going to be great for you and your allies. And another thing, speaking of that, to take advantage of that's going to help you and your allies is the Banner of War aspect of this build, which all you need to do is get melee kills. So whether you use your Frenzy Blade melee, your Powered melee, or the Grapple melee, you can start stacking Banner of War, which is going to give you and nearby allies that healing pulse. It's basically a mobile Wall of Radiance. Again, it's not the exact same thing, but that's a very similar concept. It's basically another survivability mechanic for you and your allies. And again, with Rev Generation, any damage we do allows us to get our grapple back faster. Any overpower we pick up allows us to keep Woven Mail up constantly, so we have that increased damage resistance. And then with every tangle we make, as long as we damage targets with it, we can get our melee back even more to take advantage of Banner of War even more. But the stuff on the artifact, again, specifically with our solar weapons, as long as we get those rapid precision hits or final blows with solar weapons, or we gain radiant from an ally or anything like that, we can easily take advantage of Torch, considering all the Strand debuffs, aka Suspend, that's going to be on the field. As long as we're radiant, it's literally free weapon damage from there. And then with Unraveling Orbs, again, we pick up Orb of Power, which, like I mentioned, there's going to be lots of orbs on the field from Thread of Wisdom and the Solar Strand Siphon mod on the helmet. We're going to gain Unraveling Rounds for the bow, which again can unravel targets, and when we damage unravel targets, that'll just spawn a free Threadling. Everything else is kind of a bonus, you know, with the super. Again, we can either use it for DPS, even though it's not going to be as good as a Syntheseps or Worm God Crest build. It still can do solid damage as long as you have Banner of War rolling, and it's really good for just taking out a bunch of ads, especially higher tier ads in general. And stuff with the mods, again, we get bonus orb generation, super cooldown, ability cooldowns, you know, bonus weapon damage whenever we have armor charges, you know, our strand weapon for our bow. So with the bow, it can take advantage of strand weapon surge and the bonus damage from being able to shoot those suspended targets. Because again, any target that's suspended by anything, you gain bonus weapon damage and faster draw time with the bow. So you get automatic bonus with that. Our soul weapons gain extra damage. You know, collecting Orbs of Power can either give us health back or our class ability back even faster. With our class item, again, when we use that, automatically pick up Orbs of Power around us. Again, those are all just bonus things on top of this build. The real main thing with this is being able to have really good crowd control and great survivability. And I believe with the bow, it just makes a perfect pairing. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Season of the Wishkeeper Strand Titan build, and I guess my updated Abeyant Leap build, since I haven't done one since Lightfall. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the dim link in the description, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using, down to the subclass, the armor mods, the weapons, even the drip, if you'd like, again, ornaments and shaders will be included in that dim link, because I get questions about it all the time, so you can copy all that stuff and test it out and let me know what you guys think. Again, is there something that you like using on this build? A weapon, a mod, something under the subclass that you like using in particular? Again, definitely let me know. I'm testing stuff out in this game all the time. In any event, if what you saw was valuable or entertaining to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another build video here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok simultaneously across the board, so if you want to tune into a live stream, again, we will be live 3 days a week in the evening starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are mainly going to be playing Destiny 2. Again, we are doing dungeon carries, Warlord's Ruin dungeon carry, so if you need help with it, we can definitely get you in the queue. But we're also going to be playing other games, and if you want to be proactive, join my Discord, because that's where we're going to be chatting. And we also have people looking to play Destiny 2 together, and we're also talking about other games, PC tech, anime, and more. And lastly, if you want to support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is cheaper, and the main benefit with it is you get access to all of my videos early as a member, no matter what tier you are. But there are some other benefits in there that I would recommend checking out. And if you would like more information, all you have to do is press the join button, next subscribe, and I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.